Hey, Ghost Machine fans, this one's for you.
Welcome to the Ghost Machine Fans Podcast, episode 66. Today we have a very special treat for you as we're joined by another world-famous comic book creator who has just joined the ranks of our favorite independent comic book company. Suffice it to say that our guest is nothing short of legendary. I am Becky, and as usual, I'm joined by my partner in crime, Nick. Would you like to tell us who our mysterious guest is?
It would be my absolute pleasure to do so. So our guest is a world-famous colorist from Mexico who has been working in the industry for 32 years. He was originally discovered by Jim Lee when he was running Homage Studios, which eventually became Wildstorm, whoop whoop, and continued to work with them and many other artists and inkers for DC, Marvel, and a few other publishers since. He's known as the colorist on classic titles such as Wildcats, Gen 13, Batman, Hush, Blackest Night, Venom, Han Solo and Chewbacca, and Iron Man and Wolverine Revenge. Most recently, he's done work for Ghost Machine, and he's been the colorist alongside Maytal Zchut's words and Leila Leiz's pencils and inks on Devour, It Happened on Hyde Street, and Sisterhood, a Hyde Street Story. It's Alex Sinclair.
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's a pleasure. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. The pleasure is all mine. It's cool to be part of the whole Ghost Machine monster, I guess, that it's becoming. It's great that it's become such a popular label and one that's producing great books just month after month.
Mm-hmm.
So many of them, too. So many of them. So before we talk about Ghost Machine stuff, because obviously we're going to do a lot of that, why don't you tell us, we've got some questions for you that aren't Ghost Machine related that are kind of fun, too. But before we do that, what else do you have going on? What other projects are going on in the world of Alex Sinclair right now?
I have a couple books that you might have heard about. We just in March we launched the second volume of Hush. Mm-hmm. So we're doing Hush Volume 2. Jeff Loeb, Jim Lee, Scott Williams, Richard Starkings, the whole band got back together, and we are 3 issues deep into the series. The 4th issue comes out July 23rd, and that means that we just have 2 left in the first arc. So we're doing like Hush 2, and then 6 issues, and then Hush 3 will be 6 issues, and then we'll obviously collect 2 and 3 into one massive piece, as DC likes to release many versions of everything they do. And so I'm sure we'll see many iterations of Hush 2, Hush 3, and Hush Volume 2, I guess you could call it. And I'm also working on a miniseries, The Thing, from the Fantastic Four. Which is cool because everybody's kind of hyped about the Fantastic Four. Yeah. With the movie coming out. I worked on what could be considered a prequel to the movie. Okay. It's called Fantastic Four for Steps, and it's a one-shot book that comes out, I believe, the week before the movie comes out. And so doing a lot of kind of really cool stuff. And they announced the Deadpool Batman crossover a few weeks ago, and I'm on that as well with Greg Capullo and Zeb Wells and Tim Townsend. And holy smokes, I can't tell you how excited I am for that, because growing up reading those Marvel DC books as a kid and now being part of one of them is such a gigantic checkbox that I thought I'd never get to take care of in my bucket list of things to do in the industry.
It's huge. And whoever even knew that was going to happen, like that crossover was going to happen.
First time in decades.
Yes.
Says Google.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I would have, it was one of those things. It'd be great to work on one of those as a fan. And then you were a professional. Mm-hmm. You're like, yeah, that'll never happen. And then all of a sudden they're saying, oh, we might be doing something. And then you get the email in your inbox. hey, so Greg drawing the Deadpool Batman super hush hush. We're not calling it that yet anyway, but are you in? So I'm like, oh, heck yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I don't care what you call it. I'm in.
Holy cow! What a world that you work in. To be such a talented person working with so many talented people.
Yeah,
The Hush books have been on my pull list for sure.
cool. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. And then, of course, Sisterhood, which is such a great story in itself. I've never really done a lot of horror kind of mystery and suspense kind of books over my career, and I've done a couple of them already, and both with Ghost Machine. I really just enjoy it. I like adding mood to the work that I contribute to, and so this gives me a big opportunity to jump in and do that as well. So I'm grateful to be part of this team. Maytal and Leila are amazing collaborators and such talented comic book creators that I'm so stoked to be part of this.
So I feel that it was last week. Did we cover Sisterhood
Yeah.
number 1?
Just came out.
So
Yeah,
very
it's
fresh in our minds. The color really contributed to the storytelling, like in such an artful way. I know that if we didn't over talk about that on our deep dive on it, it was very evident when, there was water or things were getting kind of spooky. I mean, it just a fantastic job.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I like I said, mood's something that I love to inject into stories. And with this, it was very much about that. And this first issue is a very expository. Is that a word? Yeah. The
Yeah.
exposition is there. And so I really had to hold back on being specific with palettes and stuff like that. So that when they did come into play, you could really feel them and the weight of them and the presence of something that's not natural. I'm so glad that it hit that way as well. And so I kind of sent it to my daughter, like a preview version of it, because she loves reading stuff like that. I said, okay, read it. Let me know what you think about it. And she said, Dad, it's my kind of book. And so that's like the perfect, like the perfect compliment from someone. She doesn't read books, she reads novels, but she really, really loves this genre. And so when she said that, I was like, all right, sweet. We did it right.
Wow. Yeah, we're parents, so we know exactly what you mean. And the specific scene that comes to mind for me is like when Sophie, in the scene where Sophie's walking in the street, I think it's starting to rain, and you see all the different bubbles about people that are like, don't throw your life away, don't make a bad decision. And your color palette begins to, like, the energy seeps from the world, is the way that, like, it's like her emotions are drained. And as she becomes like whatever she's going to become. And that's why it's sweet that it's a 5-issue series and not a one shot.
Yes.
Devour.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. And I think that's what's great about this is that there is a long play with the character development, which Maytal is so great at. She did an amazing job of it in Devour. Even if there was a one shot, you really felt for the characters as they kind of went along, so that the shock moments really shocked you. And so when I was told this was going to be a 5-issue series, I was like, oh my God, there's even more of that, which shocked me because there's such a big pivotal moment in the first issue. I'm like, oh crap, now we have 4 issues worth of what are we going to do next? So it's cool because it really just pulls you in and draws you in. And so it's been so cool to work with them and help create these characters and develop them along the way.
Awesome. We are going to ask you a whole lot about Sisterhood and Ghost Machine, but in our usual fashion, we'd like to interrogate you a little bit first.
Let's do it.
Start from the beginning. What is your comic book origin story? Like, did you enjoy it as a child? How'd you get into the industry?
It was my brother and I. We bought he was with me when he's like, hey, let's buy some comic books. And I was like, what? And he showed me an issue of Batman. I was like, yeah, okay. And that blossomed into this love of the medium between the two of us. And so we collected everything. We lived in northern Mexico, really close to the border with Arizona. And so we would drive up on the weekends to go to the movies, buy groceries. But there was a 7-Eleven across the street from the apartment we stayed at. And we'd save all our money. And every weekend we'd go and buy one of each of every new book that was out. And back then it was just Marvel and DC, and that was it. And so we read everything. He reread everything. I try to draw the ones that I like the most. And from that, my love of comics was born. So it's very, very tied to my brother. And then breaking into the industry was, I had an art degree and I was going to college. And then at some point became very clear to me that you can actually make a living as a comic book creator, a writer, artist. And so I started working on my portfolio and showing it around conventions and getting, critiques about my pencils and my inks, and my pencils and my inks. And then I started adding color pieces to my portfolio. And so every portfolio review ended with the phrase, "But I really like your colors." And it took me a while to clue into the fact that that's the one thing they're not criticizing or critiquing. And then Wildcats 2 came out in 1992. And in the back, there was a talent search. And we're looking for everything: writers, pencilers, inkers, colorists, letterers. Everything was listed. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to send color samples and get my foot in the door that way. And then eventually pencil, if that's what's meant for me. And sure enough, I sent my stuff in. And within 2 weeks, I got a call from Jim
Really?
saying, "Hey, we really like your samples. Would you like to come in?" And I had sent hand colored stuff because right around that time is when the digital age of comics was starting to kick in. And he said, we don't use guided paper anymore. It's all digital. Do you know what Photoshop is? I had no clue what Photoshop was. Photoshop was version 2.0 at that time.
Huh.
But I did have a Mac and I had a little painting program called Super Paint. And so when he started asking questions, he goes, "Do you know what the lasso tool is?" I was like, "I know what that is." He goes, "You know what the pencil tool is, the bucket tool?" I was like, "Yeah, I know what that is." So that was my interview, was knowing 3 tools and my color sample that I had set. And he said, "Well, why don't you come in? We'll see if it works out." And sure enough, I went in, taught myself Photoshop over the span of 2 weeks and got invited to stay. And so 32 years later, I'm still coloring because became very apparent to me that was my thing.
And ever since, they kept saying, "We really like your colors," and they never stopped.
That's what we're gonna put on my gravestone. We really liked his colors.
That's funny. On the wall right behind me, there's a CGC signature series signed by Jim 9.8 of Wildcats #2. That's
nice.
That's really funny that you said that.
Are you serious?
It's a newsstand. It's a newsstand. It's a newsstand too. It doesn't have the foil cover. It's
wow.
Just the white one.
Oh yeah.
Very
hard
to find. Yeah. So
it is very hard to get. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool. That's awesome. That's an awesome origin story. Blew my mind right there. So you're saying, like, as you got into the business, you came in at a really historical time. Like Wildstorm, was really getting its stride at that point, wasn't it? And so was Top Cow, and Spawn had been going strong, and then like that was the kind of the trio, because like the other ones at that point weren't as strong, I think.
Right.
And you're a part of an independent revolution, and that's akin a bit to what Ghost Machine is doing now in the industry. What was that like compared to now? What have these experiences been like for you?
I think what was big back then was that they were trying to rock, the big two, show them that a creator friendly environment could really flourish in the industry. And, they did it week after week, month after month, outselling some of the big two's major books. Like you said, with Todd Spawn and Mark's Cyberforce, Rob's Youngblood was also, all these books were just gangbusters, selling like crazy. And so from our end, it was kind of one of those things where we had to do this and produce it, right? It was like it would fail or sink. Yeah. So the book has to come out because everybody has to get paid next month, kind of an approach to the industry. And so it really kind of brought us all together, and that we were all fighting for each other and creating all this stuff together. And so we had this, and we were all really young at the time too. And so we were spending many, many hours a day in the studio creating these books. All the talent that Jim discovered and brought into the studio still blows my mind, how everybody that he brought into the studio is still a major player in the industry or has moved on to a different industry and is doing great there too. And so it's cool looking back on it. Like, it's almost hard to believe that I was part of that color revolution, if you want. And so when I saw that Jeff and Brad and the gang from Ghost Machine were kind of starting their own label like this too, I was like, oh my God, man, they're pulling some serious talent into this group, into this company. And so it's weird. I would find it very difficult to believe that they wouldn't succeed, just because of the, not just the talent and their names, but the work ethic that each of these guys has and carries in with them. And I've worked with many of them over the years and have loved working with every one of them that I have. And so it's cool when I see new people come into Ghost Machine. It's like, oh man, like, Ivan. It's like, man, I did Blackest Night with Ivan, and I did Superman with Ivan, and loved every freaking panel of every page that I did with Ivan. And Brad and it was funny because Brad asked for me for his Identity Crisis series it was his second series that he did for DC, but it was his first real My Thing kind of a story. Oh, yeah. And it was very impactful. And the second I met him, I showed up at one of his readings for one of his novels and introduced myself, and we immediately were friends. It was like we knew each other for years, and he's such a nice guy, such a talented writer. And so it's so cool to see all these, all this talent coming together. And like I said, with all these people that I've really just worked in the past before, to see them all together in one place, like holy smokes. The first thing I said was, Jeff, Brad, you guys got to let me do something. I know Brad's the guy, and Brad's the main guy for you guys, and Brad's an amazing colorist. But if he gets tired, if he, if he burns out from all the stuff you're giving him, just give me a call. I'm happy to jump in.
Because you've worked for, the big companies like DC, and you've worked for independent. So what do you feel like for you, like as an artist, has been the major difference there?
Sometimes there's a cookie cutter approach to comics that the big two have. And so scripts tend to be very similar. And so when you start working with independents, I think maybe they're not exposed to that. And so it's cool to read a script that's full of just information to soak up and use for creating what you're working on. And so these scripts that I've gotten on Devour and Sisterhood are so full of so much stuff. It's great because then I can understand the character, and I can kind of pull from that to add to the book and bring to the story what I think I can. And so I think it like you said, like there's a revolution. I think the script format from DC and Marvel, when Image came out, was a completely different thing. And so Image scripts, at least in Wildstorm, they were their own kind of beast. And then when I started working with DC, the scripts were a little bit different. Everything was a little more structured. Obviously, when you work for DC, everything's very like, this is how we do comics.
Yeah.
And so you try and so what about this? This is how we do comics. What about this is how we do comics? Right? And so it takes a little bit of kind of not finessing, but getting used to it and maybe push here a little bit. And if they like it and they let you, then you push a little bit more. And, I think it's the nature of every artist to like, if someone gives you limitations, you're like, why? Why would you do that? And so I used to teach art classes when my kids were younger. They had like a parent taught art program in the school, and I was one of the parents that would teach. And they had these people who had the program come in and they teach you the lesson that you would then teach the next day or the next week to the students. And I was the one that like, and this is how we do this. And I'd be kind of like, what about this or what about that? And I think they hated me because it's always longer. Like, why are we limiting them to this when it could be right? The creativity is, and so I did love teaching those because there's nothing cooler than watching a kindergartner paint with or draw with pastels, and then just do it and just have no inhibitions about their talent. or how good it looks. They're just drawing their freaking monster mask, and it's the coolest thing to watch. And it's inspiring to kind of want to carry that energy and go like, I gotta do that. And so that was kind of, I think, the feel for us, that with Wildstorm, we were like, we're going to do this. All right, let's do that. We want to do that. Let's do that. So we weren't limiting ourselves to what was supposed to be the way. We were just kind of like, can we do this? I think so. Let's try that. And I mean, a lot of the stuff that we were trying to create, we were also trying to invent the way to do it. Since it was going to digital, we were all kind of trying to use a photo editing program and change it into a painting program. And what was the best way for that to work? And so with Photoshop, there was a lot of exploration of what would work and what wouldn't work for comics, what would translate, what would print, what wouldn't print. And then obviously back then, computers were,
Yes.
nothing. My phone is faster than the computer that I worked on.
Way
right.
faster.
And so we had to explore and push the limitations of the equipment too. And so and I think Wildstorm was very unique in that we were doing our own thing the whole time. And then DC bought the studio and they tried to conform us to their way of doing comics. And we're kind of like, I remember when we got the guidelines for how DC scans and produces books, I called our then, whoever the person that was in charge of Wildstorm, John Nee, and I said, John, this is the stuff we were doing 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, we've gone past this and we're doing it at this level now. And he goes, all right, let me make a phone call. It's like, there's no way we're going to do comics the old fashioned way when they're so much better this way. And I think it was cool to be part of the pushing boundaries for that. And so, sorry, very long-winded answer to your question about what's the difference is it really is, there is a structure and a way of doing things with these companies I've been doing for however long. So when you come to an independent where I've been part of that independent, it's cool because there's no limit to the thought process or can we do this? Should we do that? How about that? What if we do this? And it's always like, hey, if it's better, if it's faster, if it helps us create a better book, let's do it.
Oh my
And
gosh.
we don't have to have 10 meetings about it.
Right?
We just decide on the fly. We're like, all right, we're doing that.
Oh my gosh. I can't imagine. Well, it makes a lifetime Wildstorm fan wonder how many ideas DC got from your all's process there. That's the way I would look at it. More like, I imagine a lot of good things came from that.
Yes. And there was definitely stuff that we got from DC that we never thought of. And I was like, oh, thanks. And the structure helped some. But yeah, I think as artists, being in a company that's created for creatives, we were always just trying to push that envelope.
That makes sense. So speaking of a company of creatives for creatives, in Sisterhood and Devour, when you work with Maytal and Leila, we're wondering, obviously, like, one of the main reasons that everybody loves your colors is how your colors affect mood in the scene or solicit emotion. Like, there are literal colors on characters, like iconic moments in Hush, where I can think, now that's that Batman blue for me. It's the Alex Sinclair Batman blue. Like, that's how specific. I'm serious. Like,
yes,
if I see it, like,
I know exactly. Yes,
like, that's a cool feel. It must be an amazing feeling for you. I would. And so with Maytal and Leila, what we're wondering is, where does the creative process overlap, begin, and do you get? Is it, here are some pages, do your thing, we know you're awesome? Or is it like, here are some pages, this is what we're trying to convey? Like, what happens there?
There was actually a little bit of both. So it was like, here's a document and here's kind of outlines of what what we want to hit. And here's the first script. And then there was back and forth in the time from when I got that document and script and I read it and I started working on the pages. Some of the stuff had changed along the way. And so there was the back and forth of like, oh, no. The ribbon that she's wearing used to be a different color. And so we changed it to pink. And so, I mean, it's such an iconic thing. And we had a conversation about it. So it had been my fault that I forgot that we had changed the ribbon color along the way. And so it was like, as soon as they said, it's like, oh, it's right, the red is pink. It's like, okay. And so definitely a lot of back and forth. And since it's the first issue, there's going to be a lot of that. First issues always take me longer to color than the rest of the series. And it's because I'm establishing everything from character colors to moods to specific looks. Because I don't color every artist the exact same way. I color to complement that art as much as I can. And so some artists like more rendering, some artists like less rendering. When I color Jim Lee, I don't render it to death because him and Scott have already rendered it so precisely and so well that what am I going to do and come in and try and so I come in and I just add to what they've done. And that's where mood plays a very, very big role in that. That's something that they're kind of creating, but I can really push that kind of stuff with Jim and Scott. They're very cinematic. And so I borrow a lot from movies and stuff like that. And so I see their pages. I try and create as much atmosphere and mood and obviously cool effects along the way. And with Sisterhood, it's such a two normal girls, right? And I'm trying to be, everything's naturally colored, natural light. That first opening scene is probably a couple of my favorite pages. It's such a cool, precious moment in the story that I wanted it to be just that you saw it and you immediately fell in love with the two girls. And feeding off of having read the script and hoping that the readers would do the same, right? You want to fall in love with these characters so that when, something does happen to one of them, it impacts you as well, as much as it does Sophie, right? And so there's a lot of that, trying to nurture the characters to complete them, because Leila's art is so gorgeous that the book could do amazing if it was sold black and white, right? And so my job is to come in and say, yeah, I get paid for this too. You want me to stay on. You want me to stay on the book, and so that's that. In a book like this, in a story like this, mood plays a humongous role. And I think it's, like I said, it's kind of like an extra character in the story. And so you definitely want to inject it and hold back on it as much as you can so that it does have weight when it does show up.
So when I think of the moment where there's weight in the first one of Sisterhood, I think of the scene where the water's filling up a room. Like,
yes.
That's just a scene. Well, because you make, that's when it turns super creepy. That's when you like start to flip those creepy levers that you were talking about having to get to, right?
Yeah, and that was exactly it. It was because there's a really strong moment when she drowns, and you want it to have weight, but that's still something that can happen in any to anyone at any time. And so it's shocking, but it's also real. And it's happened before. And so, like you said, I really, really did not mess with the palettes until that page. That page, I think I told you earlier, it's one of my favorite pages also because it's that's when I came in and said, it's not a normal book.
Yeah.
This is what's going on. Something's going on here. And the creepy factor turns there and the horror factor turns there. And that's, I think, exactly what I was shooting for on that one page.
Yeah, it's so good.
Thank you.
And speaking how good it is, obviously we're going to want more. Can we expect to see you? I know you're doing the rest of Sisterhood, but any more Ghost Machine projects in the future?
I actually haven't talked to. I've mostly been talking with Brian Cunningham, the editor of the series, and I worked with Brian at DC for years, and we actually became almost good friends because we spoke so much and we went through so much together because of books that we were on that were very what's the word here, traumatic. So deadlines, when you start a series and it's a 12-issue series and everything is going along great, and then the art starts to show up a little bit later and later and later and later, but deadlines don't budge. The last two people standing on a deadline are the colorist and the editor.
Right.
because I'm the one turning in the last pages of color, and the editor has to put it together, make sure that it gets out the door, and everything looks good. And so Brian and I went through a lot of many of those experiences of many issues, and so we were as close as you can be without not spending every day together with someone. Like I would see him, and it's like, hey, it's one of my good friends from a while ago, and we catch up a little bit, and it's like, all right, what are we doing next? And so when he reached out to me to Devour, obviously I wanted to do something with Ghost Machine. I love working with Brian, and he had sent me 2 or 3 pages that Leila had drawn of Devour, and I immediately said, I'm in. We didn't discuss page rates. We didn't discuss deadlines. I just said, I want to do this. And definitely part of it is being part of Ghost Machine. I think it's such a great company. It's such a great label. The creative weight that all these guys and ladies have it's insane. And so to be part of that, even if it's a little part, is great to say that, hey, I've done work for them as well. And so it was hopefully the foot in the door that gets you in, so that gets you more work. And I think Devour was about to come out when Brian said, we're working on a miniseries with them, with Maytal and Leila are doing a miniseries. I said, yes. I didn't know what it was about. I hadn't seen a single page of it. I just said yes. It was such a great experience with Devour. It's such a cool, different kind of approach for me. And I think as artists, we like to try different things, different mediums, different looks. And it was such a cool experience with that book that I thought, we're going to do 5 issues to this. Let's go. This is cool. And I've turned in issue number 2, and it's such a great story. And again, the art does not disappoint.
Oh, no doubt. And, we really liked Devour a lot. We loved that book, but I think that Maytal benefits from being able to tell a longer tale,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is great. You give her the chance to, can you do it in 1? Yes. Okay. Now can you do it in 5? I think it's great because it allows her to really show what she can do.
So you seem really passionate about like creepy moods. But I could be wrong there. I'm just wondering, what is your favorite genre to color? Like, or what's like, if you could color whatever you wanted, it's for fun. Like, what would you do?
Fun. The thing is I love doing comics. Like the superhero genre is great. The mainstream thing, I've done it for years, and I can do it. I know it's almost secondhand for me. And I think that's why I really enjoyed this, because it was different. I think sometimes when you're offered something different and you enjoy it, you want more of it.
Yeah.
So I do like the horror genre. One of the things I haven't done, I did a little bit of not cartoon stuff, but we did, the Wildcats adaptation way back when of the animated series.
Yeah.
And that was a completely different look, different approach. I actually did color guides of that, and someone else did separations on it. So did the digital coloring on it, and I did the color guides of them. And so it was a cool experience to have to rely on someone to interpret my artwork, which is something that I've always done. I'm the one interpreting someone else's artwork. And so to have someone else come after me it taught me a lot about what works and what doesn't work. And so I wouldn't mind doing something like that, where someone comes after me and does something. So I'm too far along in my age to even want to pencil anything more than a cover, I guess I should say. It's more economically beneficial for me to color, because I can color multiple books a month. It would probably take me a whole month to draw half a book.
Yeah.
But I think I would like to at least try it. In comics, we've done a lot. I mean, Blackest Night was probably about as close as I got to a horror book before I did this stuff. But, how ironic is it that it's Jeff's label and Jeff wrote Blackest Night? Like way back when is probably when the little seed was planted, like, hey, horror.
I kind of like this.
And what a great freaking story that was. Jeff, wrote the heck out of that. And still probably the hardest gig I've ever done in comics with Blackest Night.
Why?
Multiple light sources multiple colors,
True.
all
many colors,
simultaneous. Yes, and so it was a lot of. I watched a lot of concert videos
really,
to understand how multiple lights and colors worked in a single stage kind of a thing, and how one would play against the other. How do you make one pop when the other one's brighter? Little things like that you don't see in normal life, other than if you're at a concert and you're watching it and they're using all these spotlights to highlight, the drummer, but then all of a sudden the lead guitarist, and you can actually see the not just the color of the light changing, but the thickness or the bandwidth of it. And so I did a lot of that. I mean, I threw out all my rules of color theory and went out the door and said, screw it, I'm just gonna cheat my way through this whole thing. And it was hard. Like I said, when you have 6 different colors, all the same intensity, it's like, how do you make that work? And then so it was difficult.
There's a lot of panels. There's a lot. It's not Blackest Night. Isn't just Blackest Night. It's a whole bunch of
no.
There's a lot. There's a lot of work.
Yeah,
that's so cool. I'm gonna read that book and look at it differently now that I know that.
Yeah. I mean, and there's pages where there's 60 green characters.
Right.
It's like, how do you make them stand out and not look like just someone just spilled their their can of green paint on the pages. So yeah, like I said, I cheated a lot. Color theory went out the door.
Cheated or improved on your craft?
Oh no, I cheated.
I love that.
That's funny.
We happen to be zoo enthusiasts here in Cincinnati, and a little birdie told me that you teach at the San Diego Zoo.
I used to teach, yes.
You used to teach. So tell us about it.
Still cool.
Very interesting.
So it was just happenstance. I was visiting my daughter's 5th grade class. She is now 29. Has a little boy that's 16 months old and is pregnant with her 2nd son. So gives you an idea of how long ago this is. They had a visiting artist. His name was Jonairi, and he had been teaching art classes at the San Diego Zoo for like 40 years. And I happened to be there, and he said, do you want to draw with us? I'm like, sure. And I started drawing with them, and I loved wildlife. So when I was in college, getting an art degree, I was doing underwater wildlife watercolors and paintings of wildlife. That's what I thought I was just going to sell paintings at galleries of animals. And then all of a sudden my portfolio changed from my animals to superheroes, which freaked out my professors. But at the end of the class, Joe said, so are you an artist? And I said, well, yes, I work in comic books. He goes, you need to be painting animals. I said, well, the comic books pay the bills right now.
Yeah.
And then he said, I teach at the San Diego Zoo. I've been doing it for, at that time, it was like 35, 37 years. I said, why don't you come help me teach a couple classes? I'm like, I would love that. Because we would take our kids to the zoo to draw all the time. And so I did a couple lessons with him. And then he drops the bomb like, hey, I'm retiring next year. I want you to take over these classes for me. And I'm like, you want to pay me to come to the San Diego Zoo and draw? I was like, who do I need to talk to? Because let's do this. And that's how it was. And it was during the summer, so they do the how everybody does summer camps of whatever they do. And so the San Diego Zoo has an education department that runs these camps, and they have camps from kindergartners through high schoolers, just regular zoo camp, and then they have a little artist zoo camp and a big artist zoo camp, and that's the one that I was teaching. And so it was the coolest thing, because we would show up in the morning, I'd go over the lesson. We're drawing giraffes and rhinos today. This is how you draw a giraffe. This is how you draw a rhino. And by the way, we get to go behind the scenes and see the giraffes before we get to draw them. And that was it. For 4 weeks out of the summer, I would go to the zoo and get paid to draw with kids and feed giraffes and pet the zebra, feed the kangaroo, all the cool stuff that I was 2 feet away from the lioness at the in the lion enclosure and just going like, oh my God, there's only a mesh wire thing between the two of us. And if she wants to, I'm toast.
Yeah,
Right?
that's a predator right there.
Yeah, yes.
Let's talk about horror.
And she's almost as tall as I am, which is even scarier when you see a cat that big. You're like, oh crap, I get it now, kind of a thing. But like I said, love animals. I love wildlife. If I'm gonna draw for myself, it's not gonna be a superhero. It's not gonna be digital. It's gonna be some animal on a piece of paper with watercolor or pastels or a medium that is really hard for me to control.
Nice.
And so that's and I love zoos, and we've been I'm in Colorado right now with visiting my daughter and helping him with my grandson. Been to the zoo here, love it. It's just I think wildlife was in my DNA at some point, and it comes out when I want to draw.
What are your favorite animals at the zoo?
To draw, I like
to draw or to see.
So, all right, let's do to see. I love the big cats.
Yeah.
I love the elephants, but I love watching the apes just interact. So the orangutans and the gorillas, they're so fun to watch. Just see them and how they actually understand you. When I would take the class to the orangutan enclosure, it's just glass all the way across. And I would tell the kids, go sit up front with your sketchbooks and draw them. And the orangutans would come and watch them draw.
Oh, that's so cool.
And then they would show the drawing, and the orangutans they would have a genuine reaction to the drawing. They'd be like, and they like look at each other, and I don't know what they were saying to each other or what it was, but it was always such a cool experience to see these. They get it and they see it. I think I can't remember her name. I think her name was Janie. They had an orangutan there that loved to paint. And they would give her paints and canvases and sell her paintings at the store, the zoo store. And it was so cool. So I love watching them. To draw myself in college, it was whales, dolphins, sharks, and frogs. And that's why you see the frog is a big thing for me. I love red-eyed tree frogs. But I also like the animals with texture. So rhinos and elephants, their skin's really textured. Giraffes, zebras, and tigers, the stripes, the spots. And I think it's because they're also super difficult to draw. And I'm drawn to that, to the challenge of it.
That's cool.
When I work on comics, I can control everything all the time. With Photoshop, I know how to manage it. I can manipulate it. I can test it, try it. If I fail, I can undo it. And there's a fearlessness to it that when you face with a piece of watercolor paper and watercolor and a tiger, that fearlessness goes out the door, and you're so scared to start that piece because you don't want to screw it up. And I like that. I like that feeling because it helps me push past it.
So I'm curious, if I was a parent in San Diego around that time and I was looking into summer camps for my child, would the ad for that have indicated that the teacher was you? No,
I would say instructor Alex Sinclair. So,
but not like highlighting, like, oh my gosh, that's who this is.
No, and it's funny because I could only commit to 4 weeks out of 10, and they would specifically say that the weeks that I was teaching, because I did have certain parents who were fans would send their kids.
Nice.
To the art class.
That's kind of where I was going with that.
Yeah. But it was also a very different. I taught it differently, and I taught it like Joe did, because everything else was very rigid. Like I said before, it's like we're gonna go draw from 9 to 10, or 10 to 10:30. We have a snack break at noon to 1. It's lunch, and we're gonna be here from those times and here from those times and here from those times. And I was like, all right, we're gonna go to the Tigers. Tigers out there. Screw it. We're going to the tapirs. We're drawing tapirs. and I was always about the vibe of the kids, because if we were drawing orangutans and we were going to be there for an hour, but about 30 minutes into it, the kids were like, oh, we're bored. We're like, all right, back it up. We're going to the bonobos.
Nice.
And so certain people who ran the program hated that because they didn't know where I was going to be. So I said, just give me a radio. And if you're looking for me, I'll say, I'm here. Say, if I'm moving, I'll tell you where I'm going. That way, at least you know where I'm going. They're like, all right, deal. And so I think they got tired of that after a few years.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out where Alex was with the kids. I never lost a kid.
I bet the kids loved that though. Like it's summer break, they want to do something fun and like to kind of get to go all around. I bet the kids loved it.
Yeah.
And the people who were like in charge of you were like, where are you?
Where's our kids? We don't want to lose a kid. I'm like, yeah, I've never lost a kid. You worry about her. She lost 2 last week.
That's the way. And her curriculum is boring. Yeah. Come on.
But I had a blast. I would do it all over again. And I would do it the exact same way. And then, sometimes you get a class that you really have to work to get the kids to draw. And I had classes, and those were my favorite class. We get to the flamingos, and everybody's like drawing. And all I could sit and do is like, all right, I'm going to draw too. Everyone's so engaged and so into it that I want to draw. And I want to draw with you. And so there was super rewarding. I got to do so many cool things behind the scenes too. And like you, I'm a huge fan of the zoo. And when my kids come into town and you want to go to the zoo and draw, let's go. Deadlines be damned. I'm going to the zoo and I'm going to draw.
Right.
Yeah. I love that. We've had a zoo pass since we moved here 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And like we go all the time to the point where I can tell people like, well, the new exhibit is opening in 3 months. The otters are coming.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. That's great. Yeah.
If I could draw, I would draw at the zoo.
You should just do it.
Do it anyway. We'll do it anyway.
As someone who teaches art, everybody can do it. You just have to accept the fact the first few are not going to be good. And push past it and learn from it so that the next one isn't, and the next one's better. The next one's better. I had my science teacher was my best friend's mom. And at 45, she decided she wanted to draw. She taught herself to draw, and she drew the most beautiful birds I had ever seen at the time. It was all graphite, amazing detail. And that's when I realized anybody can draw. Anybody who wants to draw can draw. You just, like I said, it takes like anything else, dedication and just practice and working through the mistakes, because there's going to be a lot. I still screw up.
Willingness to maybe be bad for a bit.
You have to be.
Yeah.
You have to be. And it's the really bad ones that teach you the most.
Yeah.
Like anything else, right? And so just push past it, learn from it, and use it on the next one, and use it on the next one. And I think that's the drive of every artist, is the strive for the perfect piece that will never come.
That's true. Speaking of, you brought up earlier Brad Anderson and being kind of like Ghost Machine's guy. Obviously, in the world of comic book colorers, you guys are both like superstars. If we were
Brad's amazing.
If we arranged like a celebrity death match, would you be willing to participate?
Sure. I love Brad. I love Brad's work. I've seen Brad, and I've known Brad for a while, and I've seen his work evolve. And I remember when Brad was pretty good. He's amazing now. And I've seen his work grow and explode. And I still remember looking at something he did, and I went, oh, you got it. He's there. This is it. And sure enough, his stuff has just been amazing. It's great to see him succeed at the level that he's succeeding, because he deserves it, because of the hard work that I know that he's put into it, and the amazing work that he's producing. I mean, there's a reason why Ghost Machine has him as the premier colorist, and that's because he earns every little bit of that.
And like you said, you do multiple books a month. You literally, between Ghost Machine, Marvel, and DC, you're doing a book in all of them. So you're doing a lot of, you're a busy bee as well. So, but is it common for colorists like you and Brad to color, 5 to 6 books a month?
5 to 6 is deep. In my most productive time, I was probably doing 4 to 5. DC decided to do this little thing called 52,
Yeah.
a book a week. And they said, just give it to Alex. Alex can do 4 books a month. And I was like, well, I'm also doing Flashpoint. They're like, you got it. And so let's just say that I don't remember a lot about that year.
You just like dreamt in like color all the time.
It was, it was just, and 52 was a cool concept. And it's hard working on a superhero book doesn't have a lot of mainstream superheroes. And so they're just re-releasing as many of the B and C listers. And so it's hard because they're not characters you're familiar with. And so each issue is kind of like a number one again. I talked about how each first issue is hard to work on. Yeah. And so it was, I gotta get the feel for this book, and they were running multiple artists on the series too. And so it's not just one artist drawing 52 issues. It was, I think they had 4 artists working on it, maybe 6 artists. And so I think out of the 52, I think I did the math, I colored 44 of them.
That's crazy.
Because at some point I said, just give this one to someone else. Or it was Flashpoint is due this week. Let's give it to someone else. Flashpoint has to come out, kind of a thing. But I would say 4 to 5 was my heyday. Now I do 3 a month with a stack of probably 6 to 8 covers in a month. And that's for my age, is a good number so that I can get sleep, see my grandson.
Have a life.
Hopefully hit the gym at some point this week, kind of a thing. Yeah. The days of staying up all night, 3 nights in a row, are something I do not want to revisit, nor wish to. And that's probably what I would change about my life, is not doing a lot of those.
Well, good for you. Good grandson priority over all-nighters for crazy fans like us. For sure. We get it.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I'm mad if it's past 9 p.m. and I'm still awake.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because one of the best things that happened was DC moving to the West Coast, because it meant that I was not 3 hours behind them.
Right.
Yep.
And so Marvel's still 3 hours ahead of me. And so that's still a hard one. And so my schedule switches, where now I wake up at 6 a.m. so that at least I'm there when they come into the office with anything that needs to be taken care of. And so my bedtime has moved down a little bit.
It's your turn.
To get back to your question, if Brian's in, let's do it. Let's find something to color.
That's what I was thinking. Too. Like, what's a good way for colorists to compete?
I know. Well, it would have to be someone that neither of us has colored before, because if you say Jim Lee, I think I have the advantage because I've colored countless Jim Lee pages, and he's probably done a couple 3. And so there's definitely a cipher to coloring someone like Jim. If you say Frank, he's colored him more. Maybe an Ivan piece, that we both know Ivan real well. We've both done our thing, something like that. Or just, I don't know how you would make it an even playing field. It would be a lot of fun for me. When we were back at the studio in the coloring department, we'd race.
Oh, yeah?
So we wouldn't do like a color off, but we all right, you're starting page 3, I got page 4. Let's see who gets to page 5 first. And loser buys dinner tonight. Let's go. And, it would help, one, in that we get faster at doing what we were doing, because it was part of how to be more efficient to anybody's job is something that you strive for. But this was it was fun, because showing up to work every day and coloring comics every day can get to you sometimes. And so this was a little fun, like competitions, like pages were very similar, and all right, let's go, let's do this. And it kind of motivated a little bit, a little competition, a friendly competition never hurt. So that's it. And so I've done that side of it. I don't know that I did a panel for WonderCon once where I gave, I don't remember who, Jeremy Cox, David Barron, who else? Was it Delgado? think Edgar Delgado. I gave them a gym cover, and I said, "Color it your way." And we did the reveals on the panel. None of us knew what the other ones looked like, and I had done mine, and so we did reveals, and we talked about why we did what we did, and it was cool in that we weren't really competing to see who did it best. It was more of like, what is your approach to coloring this piece and why? Which I think is what a lot of people really want. It's not how do you color, but what were you thinking to color it like that?
That's awesome. That's such a cool idea because we were joking about the Celebrity Deathmatch, and now this is a great idea. So, Mr. Anderson, if you're out there, I would consider
Brad.
the gauntlet has been thrown.
It was not my idea, Brad.
No, he just ran with it. That's all.
That's right. No, I love Brad's work. It'd be cool to go side by side and see what happens.
And it would be cool to pick an artist maybe that also hasn't done Ghost Machine, but that neither of you have worked with too.
Yeah, I mean, he worked with Brian, and I've worked with Brian a lot as well. So it's either someone we've never worked with or someone we've worked with enough with. So like Ivan or Brian come to mind. Gary Frank. I've done a few things with Gary, but not as much as Brad has now.
Would be really neat if somehow though it was like worked into like something upcoming that Ghost Machine was doing or whatever.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool.
Maybe the fans could vote on the cover, like colored bots.
Yeah, you're gonna have to talk to Jeff about that.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. So we ask every creator that comes on this show this one fun question.
Sure.
Well, two. It's these next two, and so the next one on here is if you could have a drink. It doesn't have to be an alcoholic drink, but a beverage and a conversation with any Ghost Machine character. Who would you drink with, and what would you drink?
It's always tequila.
Always.
It's always
straight up.
Always
tequila.
Good tequila, though. So not shooting stuff, something reposado or añejo with a character. You know what? I would change this. It wouldn't be tequila. It would maybe be a shake, like a strawberry shake or a chocolate shake with Sophie.
Oh, yeah.
Because she's going through so much.
Well, so at what moment in time then?
It would have to be after.
After what?
After, yeah.
Huh?
After
there was a couple of tragic incidents in the book.
All right, let's say this. After issue 1. How about that?
After issue 1, completely. Okay.
Well,
man.
No, so
it could be dark shake.
I raised 3 daughters, and to see someone struggling like that really pulls at me. And so I would like to sit with her, just let it go, dump it right now.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. Because I think it's what she would need. And so I would change it to that, I think. Just let's do shakes at a diner and just let it out.
Not tequila at a diner. Shakes at a diner.
Tequila would be with probably Red Coat.
Yeah, I kind of thought that might have been where you were going with that one.
I say Simon every single time.
Right.
It's a lot of questions.
Like if you're trying.
Right. That's a great answer. Thank you.
Yeah, I do love that. When you are not coloring amazing comic books, what do you do for fun?
Right now, it's 2 things. Bonding and taking care of my grandson is like my favorite thing in the world right now. But I also found a new hobby. My son-in-law plays Warhammer.
Oh, yeah?
And I like to paint the miniatures. So I don't play it. I just like to paint them.
Does he get to play with them?
Some of them. I give him a couple of them. But I just, it's funny because I go into the stores to buy the stuff. Like, what do you play? I was like, nothing. It's like, I just want that cool looking orc thing to paint. It's cool. I like the challenge of the size and to make it look as real as possible. And it's something that I'm not good at yet. And I love that because I can only want to get better at it so that I can start to paint them to look like how I would a comic book character.
Yeah.
With reflective lighting and glows and all that stuff. I want to be able to create that on a little figure like that. So,
yeah, that's wild. You should totally, like, if I heard the sentence, Warhammer figure painted by Alex Sinclair of comics, I would be like, whoa, I would immediately want to see that Warhammer figure. You know what I mean? I don't play Warhammer either. I get what you're saying. You're not like the level you're at in coloring comics at that, but were you at least able to just immediately pick up concepts faster and ideas and all that? Like, is your learning curve way smaller than the average person?
Yes. And so the color theory of the application, the paint, I'm getting used to the paint and how it behaves. That's my favorite challenge, is that the company that creates these has different consistencies of paint to create different effects on the figure that you're painting. And so it's a lot of me experimenting to see what works. And like I said before, it's a lot of me saying like, well, they say you should only do it like this, but I'm like, screw that. What if you do this? What if you mix it with that? What if you mix this and that and see what it does? And so it's me again. I like to push to see what happens. And so, and that's why you probably haven't seen me post anything. I've posted a couple. I'm proud of some of them, and those have gone online here and there, but nothing that I can look at and go, hell yeah, I did it. And I don't know that might ever happen. Like, I just said about 10 minutes ago, we're always striving for that perfect thing that's never going to happen. Maybe that's the case with this too. But anyway, it's cool. It's a different challenge. It's painting a 3D figure, and I like that, an actual physical piece.
That's awesome.
It is awesome. And totally not what I expected you to say. And you get to do it with your family.
Yes.
Which is sweet.
Yeah.
Well, it has been a pleasure having you on the show, Alex Sinclair, legendary colorist. And if you all would like to check out all of our content, you can do that by going to www.ghostmachinefans.com, where you'll see all the info about our socials, our wiki, which we would love some contributors for. And make sure to check out the Discord. The invite link is on Instagram and Reddit.
And thanks so much for joining us all on the Ghost Machine Fans podcast. Have a good night. Or good morning, good afternoon. Shoot, these people listen to this all the time.